This is the Emergency Momagers podcast, balancing the chaos with power and grace.
That's so cool. Dedication.
Yes.
All right. Welcome to the Emergency Momagers podcast, where four badass women decided to come together and talk about managing the chaos of both an emergency manager and children on the side. Most of the times it's a two-man job. Some of us are doing it as one. But we just wanted to come together and kind of share our stories, share what we do. And so I'm Vanessa. I am a Deputy Director of Emergency Management at the University of California in Irvine. And I am also a badass single mama.
Hey guys, I'm Michelle. I'm the Director of Emergency Preparedness in East Central Florida and the Executive Director of the Florida Hazardous Materials Symposium. I am the proud mom of two now grown adults. My daughter is 19 going on 20, and my son just turned 18 yesterday.
Hi, everyone. I am Ashley. My background is emergency services and emergency management. I'm mom to one tornado toddler and two giant, very furry fur babies.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cori. I work in organizational resiliency for a tech company, so I do business continuity and disaster recovery. I'm a mom to four children who are just a little crazy as well, and one fur baby.
Check us out on the Disaster Tough podcast, where we started back in May.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Disaster Tough podcast, where we share insights into the big plays and right calls of leadership. We dive deep into the stories, lessons learned, and ideas that will help you in the field. Let's go.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Disaster Tough podcasts. We are your hosts, and we are not John Scardina. In honor of Mother's Day, we have kicked him out of the studio for now to have a ladies' conversation about what it's like to be emergency momagers. We all have probably heard the term momager before, but in this context of ladies working in the field of emergency management and emergency services, the chaos of life and how all of that overlaps. So we'll do some quick introductions. I'm Ashley Lauria-Golden. My background is in both emergency services and emergency management. I was a paramedic field training officer in the city of Atlanta for their 911 ambulance service, as well as worked for the State Office of Emergency Management here in Georgia as a local emergency manager. Nowadays, I get to do subject matter expert work for both emergency services and emergency management projects and dabble in some really cool things. I'm a mom to one tornado of a toddler and two giant fur babies.
And I am Vanessa Flores. I am the Deputy Director of Emergency Management at the University of California in Irvine. I am a bred USAF emergency manager. I was in the Air Force for about 12 years before I separated to come back home. We have a really big family, and I grew up with a lot of cousins, so I wanted my daughter to be able to experience that too. So came back and got a job at the Naval Weapons Station in Seal Beach doing emergency management officer for about 2 years before I found this lovely campus, and super excited because I really got to branch out from the federal world and, experience what emergency management is like in the higher education. Very different, but super cool. I love it. And then I am also a mother to a almost 9-year-old, super sweet, but super sassy little girl named Mia. I'm also here for the free t-shirt that John offered to give me after this. So
he offered all of us.
The free t-shirts are life. The Disaster Tough ones are awesome. So yes, you hear that, John? Free t-shirt time.
I'm Cori Smith. I'm the Executive Director of the Enterprise Resiliency Exercise Office at Wells Fargo. That's within the Global Resiliency Office. Also a prior Air Force emergency manager. I was only in for about 8 years though. But that definitely kickstarted my career into emergency management. My background has been emergency management, but more recently gone into private sector for disaster recovery and business continuity. I'm a mom to four. They range from 2 to 18. I have one going off to college this summer, so ECU, go Pirates. And also one fur baby. So it's a hectic life. But yeah.
And hello, my name is Michelle Checoswki. I am in Florida, so we are gearing up for what's supposed to be an active, super active, they're saying, hurricane season, unfortunately. I am the Director of Emergency Preparedness for the region. I have an 8-county region, so it's quasi-state. I have a background in law enforcement. I started out in law enforcement, and when I started having babies, I learned that, hey, you could do emergency management type stuff full time. And I was like, what? So I decided to go back to school. And now I've been an emergency manager for 12-ish years. So I have 2 kids. I guess I'm one of the oldest on this podcast. So I have a daughter who's 19. She just got home from the University of Florida. She is a Gator. I obviously failed somewhere along the line. Just kidding, Gator fans. She did awesome in her first year. I'm happy to have her home for the summer, though. And I have a 17-year-old son who is all about the Air Force Junior ROTC right now, finishing up his junior year. And he is weighing his options, college, enlisting, college first, then becoming an officer. Who knows? So if you have any advice, I'm all ears for that.
Air Force is the best way to go.
Yes.
No matter what you're out.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Awesome. He loves it.
Awesome. Well, I'm surrounded by some incredible ladies and incredible moms here. Something that, thinking of this term, emergency momagers, that, this is an idea that we bounced around for a while to discuss, that really has kind of stood out to me in this chapter of life. We're now working in the field as well as, parenthood, is that, I thought I understood chaos, from my background of being a paramedic and then, emergency management. There's always some disaster going on. But now, parenthood sometimes just feels like a natural disaster. Just, if it's the toddler spills the crackers and the dogs are eating the papers that are supposed to be for work and the husband's lost something or you've lost something. So kind of that overlap on how do you ladies handle it, or what have you taken from it? Something I've seen is that I've learned my triage skills. I thought I had good triage skills as a paramedic. I've completely learned a whole different set of triage skills, balancing work life and parent life, where I guess the first level is the same. As long as everything's, no one's bleeding, everyone's breathing, we're still good. But, what have you seen kind of balancing that chaos where it's not just now, necessarily a disaster at work, but it's life can feel like a disaster, juggling so many balls.
I'll start. So I would say the one thing that I learned is balancing life and work and kids. So when I first started as emergency manager, as we all probably did, we were all in, right? 24/7. And we just absolutely put all of our heart and mind into our work. And I saw a lot of burnout happen with that. And so taking that into life and the kids and family is I've learned to balance what that looks like, right? So in emergencies, we need to balance how much time are we putting in? Are we letting other people take over our shifts? Are we allowing to delegate, some of those tasks? Same thing in life, right? With our kids and going to school and all of the tasks and all of the sports and all of the stuff they have to do. Are we delegating? Are we having a work-life balance? Are we able to be present and not burn out, trying to balance both things? So I think that's what I've been able to do in, life and learning as emergency manager is having work-life balance and making sure I don't burn out in any aspect.
I totally agree. And I love, Ashley, the triaging your kids. I might use that. I'm going to steal that. I love that. So, I feel like I'm coming up to the end of parenthood as we know it, my 17-year-old, he definitely keeps me on my toes. So something that I love to say to him, and boys are much different than girls anyway, but, your lack of planning does not make it my emergency. And I don't know if that came from law enforcement, emergency management, parenting 101, but I tell him that all the time. So
I
welcome to
love
you.
that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's great.
I'm going to
Although
take that
she
one
would
now.
argue with me about it, but yeah, I could tell her that.
Yeah.
But I find that for me, it's asking for help. I am a single parent, so being able to kind of manage that and understand when I am at max capacity, and understanding that it is okay to kind of reach out and just be like, listen, I need a moment. I need that hour. I need that, drive home by myself with the music on or off, whatever it is that puts me back in my zen before I come, when I'm driving home, making sure I'm in the right state of mind to be able to come back to her and be able to give her everything for, what she deserves. And not this angry because of what happened today at work or, sad because of what happened at work, whatever the case may be. Just making sure I reset that and giving her everything that I need. And if I can't do that, making sure that I, address the needs with family and reaching out to those folks and being able to kind of make sure, again, mental health is important. So
That's an excellent point too. The not bringing work home and home not to work, right? Like that's tough. But once you learn that, like I might have had a stressful day at work, but I don't want to take it out on my kids, or I don't want to bring that home, or the other way around. That's a tough skill. That's really tough to do.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
been one of, I think, the toughest as an emergency manager mom, because we're so interconnected where, back in the paramedic days, you'd absolutely take that mental load home, but, you stopped getting sent to calls when you clocked out. So you could leave the physical work. But now with jobs that require you to be on call, or just that someone can always reach you by phone or by email because we're always holding our phone in our hands, that level of making sure I'm disconnecting and being present as a parent, that balance of still being, a good steward of my work, but also being present is such a huge, huge part. And I think too, what, you all kind of touched on that's been big for me that, is important in both spheres, both parenthood and in work, is that asking for help and then delegating what needs to be delegated. Because, we're type A's. We love to get stuff done. We want to do it. We want to do it ourselves, do it right now. But I really saw, because my little guy was born in 2020. So he ended up being, born during the pandemic, where you didn't have kind of the same village that you, kind of had on the front end. And now we're getting back to now, where those early days feeling so alone and, certain areas of just not being able to access the same help. And then the same thing with work is there was so much going on with work with the pandemic, taking on those other things. But the importance of, knowing when you need help and building that team and trusting that team, whether it's family, it's trusted friends, it's your coworkers at work, that we can do a whole lot of things, but we can't, do it all and all at the same time.
I think in the pandemic, I learned about like setting those healthy boundaries, and it can be family or work, right? Like, once we all went remote too, we were accessible all the time. Our work maybe we stopped clocking out at 4 or 5 and we worked till 7, 8 o'clock at night. Cause why not check an email? But that's going to what we talked about earlier too, with being present with the kids and setting those boundaries. And if you're on call 24/7, that's different than, if I can clock out at 5, I'm clocking out at 5. I'm putting my phone down. I'm being present. And the other way around, setting boundaries, with your kids and family. Hey, I'm at work right now. Like, especially working home, like all of us home, and my office is my office. Pretend I'm in my office. I can't come out and play right now.
So I had to just, go ahead.
Sorry. I like the saying, it takes a village, but not it takes a village to raise a kid. It takes a village to raise a mom. Because don't we all, have our own insecurities? Am I making the right decision? Should I have, called in sick so I could attend whatever event, or should I have told somebody else that I can't make it, so I could attend my kids' field trip, or, you know what I mean? We all have those. And especially now, my daughter, well, last year was rough, but, just thinking back and, did I mess up? What does she remember? And I even asked her, I was like, so did you have a good childhood? I mean, it's weird. And thankfully she said yes. She might have laid, but she did say yes. But, and I tried through the years to attend those field trips and be the class mom and, do this and do that. But, there's stuff that we have to give up too. So, and that's where we lean on our families. I too am a single mom. I've been a single mom for about 5 years. So, starting in their teenage years, but, my parents, my sister, grandparents are huge. So,
yeah,
that kind of ties in what I was just going to ask was, I'm one child, right? So I am that new mom. I don't know if you guys have seen those memes where they're like new mom and they're like protecting them and bringing all this stuff when they go on a trip. And then it's like the second kid and they're like one backpack and half clothed and you're totally okay with it. So, moving forward, when you guys are looking at, from your first child to like, Cori, you have 4, like this fourth child, is it different for you now to be able to just to say, triaging, right, is a whole nother type, right? It's a lot easier now because you're like, I've been there, done that. It's really not that big of a deal. And you can kind of put that a little bit lower on the bucket list, or how does that work?
Oh my gosh. Heck yeah. My first kid, I don't think she had sugar until she was like 3. Like, she was like, I handmade her food, like all organic. That poor child.
Were you that mom that had that little lunchbox that had like the little twirls?
Oh, for sure. Oh yeah, like absolutely. My 4th kid, I swear he eats Cheerios off the ground. Like he's just like, we're lucky if he has clothes on. He's just in a diaper running around somewhere. So it's like, oh, you're not bleeding, you're fine. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep going, right? Yeah. So absolutely, you get like the first kid is like high panic, high stress. Like I want to make sure everything's perfect. And I think by the time 2nd, 3rd, 4th kid rolls around, we're like, all right, look, we know you're going to be fine. Like, you don't need all these things. Just enjoy it. Live in the moment. Like, I think one of the things that I really learned heavily with the 2nd and 3rd kid, because I'm telling you, they are a handful, is expecting a person to act their age, right? I don't expect my 2-year-old to act like my 8-year-old or my 8-year-old to act like my 11-year-old. Like, they act their age. And I interact with them at their level. And it sounds bad, but I do that at work too, right? I interact with people at their level. And it actually helps, I think, connecting with those around us. I think as emergency managers, we interact with a ton of people. We are always interfacing, from politicians to frontline employees to boots on the ground to everything in between. And we have to learn to connect with people at their level. And I absolutely do that with my kids.
100%.
That is huge. And I think that's been something so eye-opening to me, even just being a mom of one, but he definitely, has a very different personality than me. And so there's a lot of things that we mirror each other, and I look and I go, oh my goodness, you're a little me. And then other things, it's that, okay, how do I explain it to him where he gets it? Not even just, obviously age appropriate at the top, but also just in general, the way that it connects to him. And it has completely opened my eyes on a whole different set of communication skills that I didn't even realize was there to be tapped into. And, it can definitely be very frustrating to learn in the moment. And you're like, just please, shoes, door, now, car, school, please, before ready later. But it's so huge to carry, like you said, into the workplace. It's given me also just so much more empathy for people in, being in the tornado toddler stage. Like the whole big emotions thing is real, but it just reminds me, like, you have no idea what's going on with people behind closed doors. So anyone we interact with, particularly who, we work with or, are engaging with, helping me be just more understanding, where, I thought I had a good level of understanding, but it's really opened my eyes to so much more of that engagement and giving that grace and learning different ways to approach people that, has been really eye-opening in a good way of just absolutely being better with the world around me.
Yeah.
It makes us better leaders.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I think it sets expectations. Like, I know that my 2-year-old is going to try to put on his shoes, and it's going to take us 30 minutes to leave the door, right? Like, so let's set expectations, right? But same in the workplace. Like, hey, look, I'm not going to come in with unrealistic expectations. I'm going to meet people at their level, and it's not going to set an unrealistic expectations, I guess. Like, I'm not going to come in and making assumptions with people, because you just never know.
So this is super cheesy, but as I was kind of thinking about this podcast here, and I'm like, what some of the topics that we would talk about and like how that relates and like my own experiences. we're dealing with an ongoing incident right now at the campus. And we were talking about the EOC and the planning P. And I'm like, oh my God, literally made the connection this morning as I'm like putting my mascara on, saying, I do the planning P every night, like before I go to bed, right? Like, what are my objectives for tomorrow? Like, how am I going to accomplish that? I have to merge what I have going on at work, and like, what are my daughter's 1,000 activities that she has in the afternoon? And like, am I going to be able to do that, with everything going on here? And, I do it through my head, which is probably why I don't sleep very well. But, I go through the whole process. What other resources do I need? It's so weird how emergency management has so like engulfed in my life, and it's just literally you live by these things at work and you live by these things at home, and non-emergency managers probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but I'm sure you guys probably can relate to that. Like,
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
How many times have your friends been like, how are you so calm right now?
Yeah. Oh my God, I get it all the time. Yeah, all the time.
I was going to ask a question. Do you think being emergency managers makes us better moms, or being moms makes us better emergency managers?
Such a good question.
I think it's moms make us better emergency.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I definitely, before having my kiddo, I thought, because my husband is also in a related field. So he has emergency management experience, law enforcement, fire, paramedic, like the whole 9 hours. We're like, we got this. Like, we can, nothing is going to throw us. Like, we've done 24-hour shifts, night shifts. Like, the kid will keep us up.
And then
it happens, and you're like, what? Nothing has prepared me for this, for the lack of sleep and everything.
This little human is less than 10 pounds.
Right,
Wow.
he's so tiny.
Yeah.
And he's so needy. Where
it's so needy.
like, and nothing ever prepared me for this. Whereas 100% being a mom has made me a better emergency manager. Where I think for some little things like scrapes and boo-boos, I'm like, you're fine. Like, doesn't need stitches. Or the time he did need stitches, everyone else was freaking out, and I'm like, just give me, we're good.
Yeah.
But no, it's definitely that other side for me. What about for you ladies?
I agree. Cori, you brought up the remaining calm. So my very first ER trip, my son was 18 months old, he loved showers. We had a stall shower, not a bathtub. He walked in, turned the shower on, was in there in his full pajamas, and slipped because of the, the plastic on the bottom of the PJ footies, and cracked his head open right here. So called 911. My husband was out in California at the time, naturally. So yeah, and paramedics came. By then, bleeding had stopped, and I'm certainly not a paramedic. Just whatever first aid they train cops with. So we end up going to the ER with my father-in-law and my dad, and the ER doctor. Well, when he broke the clot, it started squirting again. And so, so he's kind of freaking out, and he looks over at me and he's like, "You are the calmest mom I've ever seen." And I'm like,
what are you going to do?
Home, my sister was with my daughter, and, after the adrenaline dump, that's when I was like, oh my God, I'm a mom. But, yeah.
Irony of irony, my toddler, when he needed stitches, he was a little over 2. But my husband was also out of town across country in California when it happened. And it was that always is how it happens, where it's,
Yep. Yeah. Every time my kids get sick or I get sick, it's when my husband deploys or is out doing something. Like, every time. That's how I think he plans it that way, is to always be gone during disasters. But yeah, I mean, same. I think once I became a mom, well, for me, I had my first kid when I was 17. So I was really young. So I started in the career field as a mom already. But as I got married and had additional kids, I was way more calm. Again, we were the ones that were like, chaos is going on. But if you're calm in the situation, you see the situation, I think, a little bit more rationally. And okay, I'm going to make a decision, right or wrong. It's a decision, and we can adjust versus being in the emotional state. We try to make that out of logic. And same with kids, right? You're like, oh, you're so nervous around them and so nervous about everything going on. But if you take a step back and you're calm and you're like, okay, I know I've got these things planned. I've got to have this done, just like the planning P, right? You think of it logically. Otherwise, you're just going to have anxiety and never sleep, right? We're never going to get anything done. So we have to make a decision. We're going to go through our planning P. We're going to decide what's going to happen. and just stay calm during that. And same with work, right? Like at the end of the day, this disaster's happening. All right, no big deal. Everybody stay calm. We're gonna attack this. We're gonna get it done. You know, it's not the worst thing out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I just recently took a course. It's my final course to get my EM specialist certificate for the state of California. But anyways, it was called the EM Concepts course. And in the course, the last day, they obviously try and test everything that you've learned up until that point and really stress test you. So everybody gets thrown in a position, whether they've been in there or not. And I got selected for planning section chief. I'm like, oh, great. Right. So it was, of course, Armageddon. Everything's coming at you one at a time. And one of the, I think he was advanced planning at the time. He was like, towards the end, he's like, no matter what, he's like, I could tell you anything. And you were just like, okay, like everything was coming at me. And it was just like, okay, like, what do you want me to do about it? I've already told you like the top 3 things that, you know, we can focus on at this time. Everything else is just in addition to that. And it just, life at that time for me was very similar. It was Armageddon. It just seemed like it was Armageddon. Everything was happening and it was still a very calm state. And I was telling my mom, you know, everything that's happening and she's just losing it. Like, oh my gosh, like, how are you staying so calm? And it's like, well, I can only handle so much at one time. So you just start checking them off the list, right? Okay, that one's done now. Then they kind of move up and, you know, adjust as it happens. But it's just, this is how I've been trained. And this is, you know, how it is now. It's just how I operate, you know, it's crazy.
I think that if you're calm, other people become calm.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the big thing too, is like people find like, oh, I think that's why we make good leaders, especially as moms, is we're calm, right? We handle the situation and people gravitate towards us and you're able to just like, all right, I'm calm, you're calm. Here's a task, here's a task, here's a task, go get it done. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I need to get a mom as a planning section chief now that I'm thinking about it.
Right?
And not to just, you know, I just want to put it out there too, like the dads who are also playing both roles, like this goes the same for them because it is difficult. It is super difficult. So being able to kind of adjust to that lifestyle and, you know, adapt accordingly is huge. So just want to throw that out there too.
I think, you know, as moms too, not only as moms, but as women in this career field, right? Like there's so many men in emergency management, all the old fire chiefs and firefighters that were in there. I think I was the only one in one of my first jobs. I was the only female, you know, but as a mom and as a female, we can command the room. I think we can go out there and lead these incidents. Like, I think we do a better job than most. Not putting anyone else down, but I'm just saying.
I call it my mom voice. I told that to a room full of men. All right, don't make me get mom on you.
Yeah. The mom finger of like, hold on,
right?
Or the mom look. They know. Yeah.
But you're also able to kind of take a look and be like, hey, this person probably needs, you know, maybe a snack or two. Maybe they're hangry, or you know, identify things that other people may not be even considering at that point in time. So
that's very true. Right? If we can handle a toddler tantrum, we can handle some section chief freaking out about something, right?
Yeah.
Like, all right, here's a snack. Go sit down. You'll be fine.
You need a potty break? Do you need a water break? You know.
Got snacks in my purse.
Yeah.
What's up, everybody?
Look who made it!
Heard some
Look who
snacks.
crashed the party!
I love snacks. And that's a perfect time to do it. Hello, how are you all doing?
Fantastic. Thank you
Now
so
we all
much.
want snacks.
I wanted to interrupt. The kid in me wanted to interrupt the 4 moms in the room. I know you're having a great conversation, but I'm going to jump in here real quick and thank you so much for doing this podcast and having a good time. And the next time I see all 4 of you, I expect snacks. I will be hangry, and apparently free t-shirts for everybody, and everything else that's happening. But I'm actually going to let Ashley wrap this up. But I just wanted to come on the show and specifically say thank you so much for doing this and for being incredible examples, not just of moms, because you're all incredible moms, but of emergency management. You've all been on the show because I think you're experts. And really, for Mother's Day, I think I'll be able to announce it. My assistant's in the other room, so she can't hear me right now. But my wife is pregnant with our 3rd, so I'm very excited for that.
Wow.
You make it really mad at me for saying this before we tell everybody else. But seriously, thank you so much for all the incredible work you do for the field and for your families, and especially for me. And I'm out. We'll see you guys. Bye.
That's
All right.
awesome.
Well, that was a really exciting note to end on.
Yeah, I know,
I
right?
can't follow
I
any
don't know
of
what to
that.
say.
Keep that up. I'm going to throw one more short question out since I know we're coming up on time. But if you had to give one just little soundbite piece of advice to your, your pre-mommyhood, your pre-emergency management self, what would that be? Mine would be 2 little quotes that I cannot take credit for, but they've really resonated, is that, sometimes you will really be faking it till you make it, but just keep going. If you are acting calm, it'll make you feel more calm, and that'll make everyone else feel more calm. Yeah. And then also the only way out is through. So a lot of times it seems like we just kind of are stuck because there's so much going on, but the way that we get through it is to keep moving, whether that's with, mommyhood chapters or work chapters, is just to keep it moving forward. So what are yours?
Wow, I love that. I love that so much.
I did not come up with them, but I've just taken them to heart. So I don't know the original authors, but thank you, original authors.
Thank you, original. That's okay. This is probably a little bit weird, but I just bought a new house and I'm putting up the decorations. And in my bathroom, I found something that says, I don't know the exact quote. I try and say it, but it's wrong. And my daughter calls me out on it all the time. But it's something like, just breathe. Tomorrow's a new day and you get to start again. So just whatever happens today, don't worry about it. You can, start fresh the next day. So that's mine, I think.
Awesome.
Yep. For me, I think if I could tell my way younger self, everything happens for a reason and it's all going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
So, it just seems like, the old adage where one door closes, another one opens. And sometimes it might not seem like the best decision at the time, but it led to what was right. So,
yeah.
And my kids are pretty good, almost adult. Well, my daughter's an adult. My son's almost an adult. And you will get to sleep again. My kids have tucked me in since they were about 16 and 14. So they tuck me in at night now. So it's good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Man, you guys have good ones. I would say, I guess the one I have is just live in the moment, right? Like in a disaster, be in the moment, handle it there. Don't worry about anything else. Have your mind on, straight. Same with children, right? Live in the moment. Just be present. And the other quote that I always have at the bottom of my email is, indecision is a decision, and indecision is a thief of joy. So just make a decision, right or wrong. We can always adjust, no matter what we're doing. So don't just sit there, do something.
For sure.
Very true.
Awesome. Well, these were
Good question.
all awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think that is going to wrap up our time. Vanessa, Cori, and Michelle, thank you so much for all coming on with me and hanging out with me and getting to talk emergency momager life. Thank you for all that you do for your fields, and as awesome kick butt mommies, keep being kick butt. And then for our listeners, you'll have John back next time. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you for having us.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
Like and subscribe. Buy our stuff on thereadiness.com.